Hi, class. Because you are working on surveys this week, and I know quite a lot of you don't have any experience creating surveys, and especially creating surveys in Qualtrics, I wanted to go through what it looks like to start a survey in Qualtrics. It's really pretty intuitive, so there's not a whole lot of in-depth explanation that I need to do. But I do want to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like whenever you start using the software. I will remind you that there are lots of tutorials on YouTube and also on LinkedIn Learning that you can use that might be a little bit more in depth than what I'll show you here. So please use whatever resources that are available to you to learn as much as you can about using Qualtrics. The survey that I'm asking you to do is not going to be a super detailed survey where you're going to have lots of different like branches where people, might ask a certain question, and then the answer to that question will lead you down two different paths. Really, you're going to have a pretty straightforward survey, which I will go through with you here so that you will be able to see kind of what it looks like whenever you're getting started with the survey. So the way you get to Qualtrics is through your MyUNT account. You'll see this where you've got all these different cubes, and you'll click on resources. That'll take a second to load, and then you will click on Qualtrics. And that will take you directly to the Qualtrics page where you can see all of the different surveys that you have made. So you can see here that I've made some recently and some quite a long time ago. And so what you'll do is you'll click on Create New Project. And that will then take you to this where you're going to click survey, because that's what it is that you're looking to do here. And so it's going to ask if you want to start with a blank survey project, which is what you want. And then you're going to type in the title of your survey. So TECM 4180 example is what I'll call it. Okay, and then you'll click Get Started. And then it will take you to kind of what the default settings are for Qualtrics. So I'll kind of walk you through what some of these mean. So this entire section is going to be where you're going to create your survey. There's a pretty good indicator for that because you can see where you can write the question text and then where you write all of your different choices. Now over here on the right-hand side, you have a lot of options for what kinds of questions that you're able to ask. And so it gives you a whole bunch of different things listed there if you want to choose multiple choice. Then if you click on multiple choice, you'll see that you have a whole lot of different options that you can use. And one kind of cool thing is it does this pop out where it'll show you kind of what that looks like. So because you're not super familiar with the terminology, you may not know what a matrix table is, but when you click there, you'll be able to see that you have two different pieces of information, right? You have like you're very satisfied going to very dissatisfied. And then on the left-hand side, you have the different standards that you want the people to determine how satisfied they are with those things, right? Like quality of service, helpfulness. There's a lot of them in here that you probably will not use for this. For instance, like hotspot, you're not asking them to look at something and then tell you where the things that they like or dislike. You're not going to necessarily have them do a heat map. There's things in here that just aren't that useful, but with the standard questions, which is probably where you'll look most for this assignment, you can see that you've got a lot of the things that I discussed in my video that I made last week. Okay, so that's sort of a little bit more information about the layout. You also have some things here where you can choose what you want the look in the field to be. So they have some different options. Obviously, you're not going to choose UNT Dallas because you don't go there. There's the survey flow section, which indicates how the survey will flow. This is where you will be able to add in kind of an outline for your survey if you want. But one of the nice things is you don't necessarily have to go in here and do that. You can do a lot just using the survey itself, and then it populates here so you'll be able to see what the flow is like, and it'll help you see if you want to maybe move things around later. There's survey options that give you a whole bunch of different options that you might need to include. like back button, save and continue, show question numbers, whatever you might want to include for your survey. And then there's some additional tools here too that probably aren't going to be super useful for you in this particular case. So whenever it comes to writing questions, it's pretty simple. You put in whatever the question is that you or you and your group have decided you want to ask. So maybe you're going to, like kind of building upon my examples from last week, maybe you want to find out more about people who are working from home, right? People at UNT that work from home. So you might be interested in asking them, how long have you worked at UNT? Okay, so here you're gonna have probably a multiple choice, right? But you want to make sure that you're pretty inclusive of your options. So you might put less than 1 year, between 1 and 10 years, and then maybe your third option is 11 to 20 years. And then say that you want to add another one because you know that there's some people at UNT that have worked there longer than 20 years. So you have the option here that you can add another choice. You can add as many choices as you want. You can also delete them. So maybe we're going to put here 21 plus years. Okay, so you've got a question now that includes everything from less than 1 year to 21 and up. We've made sure that we have not overlapped years, because if you're less than 1 year, that's definitely, it's pretty clear that you've got less than 1 year and then between 1 and 10 years, and then you go through here. If you wanted to make the questions really consistent, you could do something like 1 and 10 years and then maybe change this to less than 12 months or something like that. And then you make sure that it's very clear that none of these overlap. Okay, so then maybe you need to add a new question. So then you click create new question. And then maybe your next question is, relates to, are you currently telecommuting? And so then it would definitely be a telecommute, and it's changed some of these, but that's fine. So it would definitely be a yes, no, sometimes type of question, right? But here, it gives you quite a lot of options so that it will like kind of puts them on a scale if you're looking at doing a scale, and it writes some of those scales for you. But then you can also go in here and let's see, so we definitely want multiple choice, but we don't want it to do the automatic choices for us. And so maybe we want to go in here and put yes, and we want to put here no, and then we want to put here, there would just be yes and no. You wouldn't have a maybe there. So let's go ahead and we'll decrease our choices there. So you've got yes and no. All right, so maybe you're satisfied with this and you want to make sure that this section is in a block. So you're going to change that to job data or something like that. All right. So you've then got your block, you've got your 2 questions. You can add in more questions, but then, you know, these are maybe 2 questions that you'd want to add. So the reason why you want to change these and put the information in blocks is because that helps the person taking the survey know, okay, we're jumping from this type of information to another type of information, right? So we're going to add a block because we know that you want to ask demographics questions because you need those for your report, right? So you might ask something like, what is your gender? Maybe that's important to you. So then you'd want to include, and it's going to put male here and then female, but you want to add in some more options, right? Like you might not want them to say, prefer not to say. And then if you decide that you want them to write in a response, then you could put something like other, and then you can click here, and then you can do allow text entry. And so that would allow them to put whatever their other might be there. Obviously, I'm not being as inclusive as you could be on the what's your gender question. There's a lot of different options that you can include. You can Google that, and that would help you out a lot to figure out exactly what you might want to include there. But one of the nice things is if you feel like you've been pretty inclusive, but you want to leave another option, you can always put other, and then people can fill in that box, right? So if we want to create another question, because maybe we're interested in asking how old are you? All right, so then it's going to give you an option, like a multiple choice type option. There may even be some things available over here where you've got like drop-down lists, you have all of those. And there may be some automatic choices available for you there. Let's see. Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, this is where you could find some of those pretty standard questions. So here you've got age, right? And so you don't even necessarily have to ask, like type in all that information. It can pre-populate that for you. And you can also do a drop-down list, which this is a really good time to include a drop-down list because you've got so many options here. And so if you change that from single answer where it's just the normal list to a drop-down, then they do this. They click whatever the age is, and then it shrinks it down again. So you're not taking up quite so much of this space. This is also helpful whenever you're expecting some people to be using devices like tablets, perhaps, or phones more specifically, that it's usually easier to select from a list like this on a phone than it is just to do multiple choice. All right, so you've got your gender, you've got your age question. All right, so maybe you've decided that that's enough, which it's not. You definitely need to ask some more questions. But then you're going to add another block. And one of the things that you're interested in are people's attitudes. So you're interested to know how people feel about working from home. And so this is where you could do something like, if you want to find out how satisfied people are on a scale, then you can include something like a matrix table, right? Where there's all these different scales that you can include, or all these different options, and then you can write your statements, you can write your scales here, and then that's going to help you out. But if you play around with this, I feel pretty sure, yeah, so it's going to give you all of these options. And so it pre-populates it for you, which is great, but you may not like the scale. And so you can click here on the right-hand side, agree, disagree, and then you can go through all of these and then identify what it is that you want to do. I would caution you to think really, really closely about what it is that you want to ask the person. And what kind of responses you're looking for. Because some of these get to be pretty specific, like if you're looking at something like competent, incompetent, if you're looking at something like interesting, challenging, whatever, some of those are not going to be really that useful for you. So maybe here you're just looking to see how satisfied they are with different things. So here you would include whatever your question is, which might be on a scale of extremely to extremely. Please tell us how you feel about the following statements. Okay, so maybe that's your question. And so here, your statements, which they shouldn't be questions, they should be statements, would be things like how satisfied, or let's see, we could do something like COVID-19 communication from UNT leadership. We could do something like preparation for telecommuting. We could do transition of business operations to so it's a horrible question or horrible response, but you get the idea. So here what you're able to do is if you're trying to figure out people's attitudes on a scale, this allows you to pack a lot of punch into a very small amount of space, right? Because instead of asking people repeatedly, how do you feel about this? And how do you feel about that? And how do you feel about this? You can just say on a scale of all of these things that are going to be consistent, tell us how you feel about these different things, right? And I think that this question probably would be better worded. Sorry for that break there. If you said something like, please tell us how how prepared UNT was with the following issues or whatever. There's a different way you can formulate it. Really here, I'm not really so focused on the questions. I'm more focused on showing you how Qualtrics works. So then if you wanted to create a new question, you would go here and create a question, and then you have a lot of different options here. So let's see if we can come up with anything else that might be useful for you. So with rank order, it's a pretty simple thing. You would say, you know, please rank the following in please rank the following items in order of usefulness to you and the use to converting to telecommuting. So one might be, and it's already populating that for you. You can always undo the automatic items. But you might choose to do something like laptop, webcam. Wireless keyboard, because maybe that was really important to you. Office desk chair. So obviously this is kind of nonsense, right? Because those are not going to be the things that you would necessarily list. However, whenever you do this, this is going to give people an option to rank order the items in the order of importance to you, right? And so that might be a useful way for you to find people's attitudes about how important things are to them. And you could do this for any number of things, and it obviously doesn't have to just be nouns, right? You're not just looking for these types of things. You might be looking for more feelings-based stuff. You might use this in the section, like if we were talking about your work environment or something like that. This kind of question could be useful for that as well. So now we've got 3 different sections. Let's say that we're pretty happy with our survey, but we realize that we need to start with demographics. You can go up to survey flow, I believe, and you might be able to move, yeah, you can move that by just clicking there. And then you should be able to move it up. See, so you've got now your demographics, your job data, and your attitudes. So maybe that makes a lot of sense to you. It will give you then, it will put them in order. And then you'll see here that you've got an IQ score that'll tell you how easy this is going to be for somebody to complete. So if you click on that, it's going to tell you what kinds of questions that you might have or things that might be either minor or major issues with your survey. And so that helps you to pinpoint some of the things that might be going on that you could correct that would be helpful for you. So whenever you're pretty happy with the survey that you've created, then you can click preview, you can click publish, and then that's going to help it go to other people. And something I'll remind you as well is you should include an introduction of some sort. And so you would be able to do descriptive text. You could put this survey is being, we are gathering the opinions of UNT employees who are working from home. Right, so maybe that's all that you want to include, and so that's now down at the bottom. You can go up here to survey flow. You can move this up. Move it up. All right, so we're saving that flow, and then we can go down here or go up here actually and put introduction. And something that's really frustrating for me is that whenever you write questions, no matter the order you write them in or where you move them to, it leaves them like this. You can renumber your questions. So just keep that in mind as well. If you want to make sure that it's question 1 through question 16 or whatever, and they're in order, then you can go in and you can update that and make those go into order. And I would imagine there's probably something you can do besides typing it all in as well if you wanted to figure that out. So anyway, this is generally how it works. So if you go into preview, then you're going to be able to see what it looks like. So this is your introductory text, and then it's going to go here and you're going to select the different information, and then it shows you here what it's going to look like on a mobile device, which is really, really helpful. So that's basically the crux of how it works. I believe that you have to publish it in order for it to save, and so I would definitely recommend that you do that. It'll give you the link for the survey, and you should be able to go back and edit it. So one thing I wanted to show you is if I have one, let me see. I'm trying to find one that I've done that has responses. I don't think this one had responses. Just give me 1 second and I'll find this. Okay, so I may not be able to find one that I've done that I can display it for you, but one of the things that you have as an option in Qualtrics is you can go into data and analytics, and it'll give you the responses for the questions that you have. And so that's going to be really helpful for you whenever it comes time to actually write your paper, because it's going to give you all of the information that you need for your paper. So one thing I'll show you too is whenever you have all of this information, so you've got your new status, some are active, you've got your questions that you saved, all of that stuff, then you can go and it'll show you what the estimated response time is going to be for the survey. And then I believe that actually updates to show some other information for you in the future. Like here where it says a 12-day trend, all of that stuff. It'll give you some additional information about your survey. And then you can activate it here, preview, edit, distribute, all of that stuff. So anyway, I hope that this was helpful for you. Qualtrics is pretty easy to use. And again, we're not asking you to do super complicated surveys. We're really just asking you to make really great survey questions, make sure that the responses that you have make sense for what you're asking. So that way, whenever you gather this data for your final assignment, that you'll have all of the information that you need. But as always, I'm here to help you with whatever it is that you need for this project. You do need to turn your survey questions in by Wednesday, April 22nd. And I know that that is a fast timeline, but if you sit down with your team or if you sit down by yourself, you should be able to come up with your questions pretty quickly. You do need to have 28 total questions. That would include your demographic questions all the way through the very end. So just make sure that you are working on those. I have posted some options for you to set 15-minute check-ins with me if you would like to do that. And then I'm also available Wednesday from 5 to 6 for office hours. And then I will set other times with you if none of those times I proposed will work for you. So please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help you. You know, just trying to help you get through the rest of the semester, and I certainly don't want this class to be a burden. So the more questions you ask now, the easier it's going to be for you going forward, because sometimes people overcomplicate things whenever they don't have all the information they need, and I don't want you guys doing more work than you really need to do. So anyway, please reach out to me. I'm going to be happy to help you. And I definitely recommend that you go back and look at my survey video from last week. I think that that will help you out a lot whenever you start to formulate your questions. But anyway, please reach out to me. Take care, guys, and have a great week.